But in this generation, all of this bitching and moaning about people being quote unquote shitted on, excuse my language, has come into the forefront, and the ringleader is LeBron James.
Yo, what's the move, man? Stephen A. Smith is right back on his soapbox, and he's going at LeBron all over again. And listen, y'all already know these two just don't rock with each other for reasons that aren't exactly hidden. I think we can all piece it together. But remember when LeBron walked right up and confronted Stephen A. courtside during the game? And ever since that moment, the beef has been fully out in the open. They even started trading shots on Instagram and hopping on podcasts just to call each other out directly. And even though that whole situation happened well over a year ago, Stephen A. still hasn't backed off one bit. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. All right, let's break down exactly what Stephen A. had to say.
When he talked about you can look at two guys without, for the purpose of shitting on somebody. But obviously it's usually somebody doing that to me. That is where the problem lies. Because what we don't talk about enough, Will Bond and Doggy, is as great as LeBron James is and how much he deserves to be celebrated. We don't talk about what he has done to hurt not the game, but narratives associated with the game because of how he responds to it. I looked it up, Will Bond and Doggy. Do y'all know that there have been over 5,400 players in NBA history that have played in the NBA? I have LeBron James as number 2 all time. We're talking about Russell. We're talking about Kareem. We're talking about Wilt. We're talking about Kobe. We're talking about Elgin Baylor and Oscar Robertson and all these people. I have the man number 2. In his world, that's an insult. That is how he has acted with so many people along the way. But he doesn't do it directly, as you know, Will Bond, and as you should know, Doggy. Oh, no. Other people do it for him.
Honestly, I'm riding with LeBron on this one. You don't have to constantly dog a player every single time his name gets brought up. It costs you absolutely nothing to shine a light on what somebody actually contributes to the game. And look, no matter where you land on the GOAT debate, you cannot sit here and tell me LeBron doesn't face a level of scrutiny that almost nobody else in this sport experiences. If Stephen A. has him slotted at number 2 on his personal list, then I genuinely need to hear who's sitting at that number 3 spot right now. Because it's wild how every single LeBron conversation somehow circles back to his worst moments and his lowest points, like clockwork. You'd barely even register that the man is ranked second all time in Stephen A.'s own eyes unless he literally announces it himself. But here's what's interesting. I rarely hear Stephen A. dissecting the failures and slip-ups of the other guys he keeps in his all-time top 10. Those conversations almost always stay locked in celebration mode. And sure, every single legend has some blemishes somewhere on their record. No player in a team sport walks away with a perfect resume, and that's just the cold truth of competition. Hold up though. Stephen A. literally admitted with his own mouth that he'd need MJ to pay him before he'd ever consider being his spokesperson. Let that statement breathe for a moment and really absorb what that actually means. When was the last time, and I mean genuinely, when did you hear Stephen A. say one single critical word about Michael Jordan?
Last point, Jordan got mad at me one time. And I literally looked at Michael Jordan and I said, you know what, fuck it, $250,000. He said, what? I said, because you want me to be your publicist. You want me to be a journalist. You don't want me to be somebody covering the damn league. You want me to say what you want me to say. Can I do my job? It's like I'm covering the game.
Look, at this point, MJ must have signed a whole contract with Stephen A.'s soul, because when is the last time, and I mean ever, that man said one remotely critical word about Michael Jordan? The second anyone even whispers that MJ might not hold that GOAT title, Stephen A. clutches his pearls like someone just insulted his grandmother on Sunday dinner. MJ is absolutely my GOAT too, don't get it twisted. But I'm not about to turn into a courtroom prosecutor over a basketball conversation. We're genuinely not doing the whole screaming debate thing here, because I already know neither one of us is walking away with a changed mind. You got someone else sitting at the top of your list? Completely valid, zero judgment, we can coexist. And listen, the LeBron case isn't just some weak argument people throw around, because that man has done things on a basketball court that genuinely deserve flowers. On my personal ranking, he's breathing down MJ's neck at a very comfortable number 2, no hesitation. But unlike a certain loud television personality, I'm not out here twisting myself into a pretzel just to protect Michael Jordan's legacy like it needs my protection.
We ain't counting the 2 years with the Wizards. He was trying to become an owner, and they needed him to come out of retirement to have an ownership stake. That's what they needed. We're talking about his 13 years in Chicago.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Because if you think for 1 second that that's not going to be held against his legacy, surrendering a 3-0 lead, y'all got y'all head in the sand.
Shout out to the Lakers for holding it down, because trust me, people were lurking in the shadows just praying for Bron and the crew to stumble. But that right there is the selective energy I keep calling out. Glossing over MJ's twilight years like they're classified government files, while LeBron's every move gets dissected like a crime scene investigation. And look, if a team ever became the first to blow a 3-0, yes, hang that around his neck. That's completely fair. But where is that same courtroom energy when the GOAT debate flips to Jordan? Nobody's rushing to revisit him getting bounced in the first round like somebody quietly deleted that whole era from the internet. Hold up, let's also talk about how conveniently people forget MJ eventually teamed up with guys from rosters that used to hand him his lunch, specifically those bad boy Piston squads that sent him home early like clockwork for years straight. And listen to this, a good chunk of that narrative has been polished and stretched so far from reality, so do yourself a favor and actually pull up the original footage. Or here's another one people love to skip. The man walked away from the game right when the Bulls organization moved on from his coach, and somehow that never makes the greatest of all time highlight package. Real talk, if you dig deep enough into any legend's legacy, you're gonna find chapters they'd rather leave unread. But personally, I'd rather just sit back and appreciate elite basketball rather than turn every conversation into a courtroom where nostalgia and revisionist history are the only witnesses.
But in this generation, all of this bitching and moaning about people being quote unquote shitted on, excuse my language, has come into the forefront, and the ringleader is LeBron James in terms of creating that narrative. Instead of sitting up there and looking at it and saying, over 5,400 players have participated in NBA competition, and I'm on the Mount Rushmore of basketball because he's not viewed as the GOAT. It's insulting. Years ago, as I've said many times, his agent, the boss of Clutch Sports, the one and only Rich Paul, I'm joking around with him, acting up. Yo, man, y'all act like damn number 2 all time is an insult. Serious as a heart attack. It is an insult. It is an insult. Hell are you talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, that's the real reason that stuff went down with me and LeBron. I'm just gonna keep it a buck with my audience.
I got some oceanfront property in Antarctica too, so step right up. If you actually think LeBron pulled up on Stephen A purely over a second best ranking, then bro, you've been watching a completely different movie than the rest of us. There are way more layers underneath that moment, and LeBron literally spilt out his reasons when it all went down. And that is the exact reason why athletes are out here building their own platforms, their own podcasts, their own microphones, because they're done letting someone else narrate their legacy. For decades, certain media personalities have been firing off takes with the loudest megaphones and the least amount of consequences imaginable. Hold up, and let's not skip over the fact that these same voices have been quietly programming how everyday fans consume and understand this sport for over 20 years. Like, how many times are we genuinely gonna dust off the MJ versus LeBron argument and act like it's breaking news? Just let these two legends breathe. They both changed the game in ways that don't need a winner declared. And honestly, that's the conversation we should have been having all along.
But we're called haters. and he walks around with animosity and disgust and vitriol because debates he sparks actually happen, and then he wants to play innocent Abe. Did we ask him to wear number 23 like Michael Jordan did? Did we ask him to call himself King James? Did we not watch him after he won the finals in Cleveland, beating Golden State after trailing 3-1? Did he not call himself the GOAT in the immediate aftermath of that? Even though ultimately he modified his position and reminded everybody that Jordan was the GOAT? We did that? Or was that him? See, this is the stuff that gets on my last freaking nerves. Because I have no doubt that I will have callers that will call up here. You hate on him, Steve. That juvenile BS. Not listening to facts. And not detailing and chronicling the facts.
That's the real problem with Stephen A. Smith, and honestly, it runs deeper than most people want to admit. Half the people tuning into basketball right now aren't even watching the sport. They're watching a personality, a jersey, a brand. Hold up, did anyone walk up to Michael Jordan and hand him the number 23 with instructions? Did LeBron ever stand at a podium and literally say the words, "I am the greatest of all time" out loud? Bro, when you actually say it that way, the idea that a player can't self-identify as the greatest sounds absolutely absurd. Why does he have to stay silent about his own greatness if that conviction lives deep in his chest? And like I've said, Stephen A. slips right into the same trap he's busy pointing fingers at and everyone else. The second someone challenges MJ's throne, his whole face shifts. It gets personal, it gets loud, and that mirrors the exact fan behavior he pretends to be above. Personally, I will never understand how people develop emotional bonds with athletes, as if they were in the weight room suffering right alongside them at 5 a.m. Basketball is entertainment, not a religion, and the GOAT debate was never meant to be a blood sport between eras that will never actually collide. MJ, LeBron, Kobe, Kareem, whoever's on your list, that perspective is yours, and it deserves its space. But the second someone clutches their pick like it's carved into a monument and refuses to budge, especially when Stephen A. swears MJ is untouchable regardless of what unfolds, that's where bias stops hiding. Nobody on this planet knows what tomorrow looks like, so slamming the debate shut forever is exactly where the agenda reveals itself. Drop your GOAT in the comments, because I genuinely want to see where everyone stands on this. If this hit different, subscribe, leave a like, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out.